Good morning, all. I would like to welcome you to the 11th meeting of the Joint Select Committee on Local Authorities, Service Commissions, and Statutory Authorities, including the THA, in the 12th Parliament. Members of the listening and viewing audience are invited to post or send their comments via Parliament's various social media platforms, Facebook page, ParlView, the Parliamentary YouTube channel, and Twitter, or even if they so desire to WhatsApp members and with any sort of concerns they have, members of our committee. At this stage, I would like to introduce myself. I am Independent Senator Dr. Ahmed Yalsing. I'm in charge of this committee, and my members will introduce themselves in a short while. But first, I would like to welcome the members who are here from the Office of the Director of Personnel Administration, Teaching Service Commission, Ministry of Education, and representative of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. I know this week we are going towards a holiday, so some may be in holiday mood, others may be geared up for school starting next Tuesday. So there may be different areas that persons are here in different capacity, some gearing up, some going to holiday mode, but we thank all for being here present this morning to assist us in this very important hearing and venture. At this stage, I would like to invite the Office of the Director of Personnel Administration to introduce himself and members of his team.
Good morning. My name is Corey Harrison, Acting Director of Personnel Administration, Service Commissions Department.
Good morning. Martel Waldron, Acting Deputy Director of Personnel Administration.
Good morning. Fari Mohammed Basde, Acting Executive Director, Teaching Service.
Good. Are there any members again? Is Ms. Tavita Ramcharan there?
Ms. Ramcharan would be absent today.
Okay. Well, welcome you all, and thanks for being here in this discussions today. And at this stage, I would like members of the Teaching Service Commission to please introduce themselves, started with Ms. Elizabeth Crouch, the Chairman of the Teaching Service Commission.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Crouch, Chairman, Teaching Service Commission.
Good morning. I am Claire Brathwaite Alexander, member of the Teaching Service Commission.
Good morning. I am Inshan Mohammed, member of the Teaching Service Commission.
Thank you, members, for being here this morning. And at this stage, I would like to invite the members of the Ministry of Education to introduce themselves, starting with Ms. Sharon Asherman John, the Deputy Permanent Secretary.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Ashman John, Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education.
Would your team introduce themselves?
Good morning. I'm Doris Book. I'm one of the directors HR in the ministry.
Good morning. I'm Arde C. Prasad. I'm Acting Director, Secondary, Ministry of Education.
I must apologize for the absence of Mrs. Lisa Henry David, who is unavoidably absent today.
Yeah. Okay, members, thank you for being here this morning. And could officials of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Darren Lehim, the third Vice President.
Pleasant good morning. Darren Lehim, third Vice President of Tutor.
Good morning, everyone. Kerry Groom, the Industrial Relations Officer, Tutor.
Good. Good. So thank you all for, and a warm welcome to you all, and I hope we have a productive discussion. At this stage, I would like the members of my committee to do the same and introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. Again, welcome. Renuka Sagram Singh Suklal, member.
Good morning. I am Jayantala Chudel, Opposition Senator, and I'm a member of the committee as well.
Good morning. Lisa Morris Julian, member.
Good morning again, Nigel Freitas, member.
Oh, okay. Okay, members, thank you for being present this morning. And I would like to remind all that the objectives of this inquiry is to examine and assess the administrative and operational changes that have been implemented at the Service Commissions Department during the past 3 years, and also to evaluate the impact of these administrative and operational changes on the ability of the Service Commissions, with the acceptance of the JSC, to execute their constitutional responsibilities. And also 3, to obtain insights into the plans and proposals aimed at further improving the institutional capacity of the Service Commissions Department. And 4, to examine the factors and conditions that are hindering the successful implementation of organizational transformation measures at the Service Commissions Department. So at this stage, we have that agenda this morning, and I would now like to invite the following persons present to make a brief opening remarks. And I would like to start with Ms. Elizabeth Crouch, the Chairman of the Teaching Service Commission.
A very good morning to you, Chairman, and members of the committee and all colleagues gathered here today. As you know, the Teaching Service Commission comprises the following members: Dr. Olabisi Kuboni, Dr. Martha Deans, and with us here this morning, Mrs. Claire Brathwaite Alexander and Mr. Inshan Mohammed. We commissioners are all deeply rooted in the field of education, having served for many, many, many years in the whole range of the spectrum. For example, I have served as a principal in a large secondary school for 15 years, and I followed that career with another 15 years as principal of a large primary school. I now want to refer to the Commission's annual report of 2020, when we submitted to this Parliament and where we stated our intention to pursue 8 strategic goals. Over the last year and a half, the Commission has focused its energies on the achievement of these goals, and indeed, we have added a 9th. Upon taking up our responsibilities as commissioners in October 2020, we were acutely aware that COVID-19 would have a major and deleterious effect of unknown proportions on the health of the school system and the teaching service. So we determined through these 8 goals to treat with our remit of appointment, promotion, transfer, and discipline in such a way as to ensure a robust response to the challenges the system will, of course, experience when the pandemic ended. Fortuitously for us, digital transformation is now pivotal at the Service Commissions Department. And through the mechanism of the highly acclaimed virtual interview platform, or the VIP, which is a singular creation of the IT division of the Service Commission Department, we were able to successfully interview 557 applicants for the position of head of department, and we are currently filling 315 positions of head of department secondary positions, which, Chairman, are critical to deal with student learning loss and the restoration of full delivery of the curriculum. Now, I don't have to remind anybody here, many of you are educators in your own right, that delivery of curriculum is the meat and bones of a school. And so through this extraordinary effort, we accomplished this goal, the goal that we told you we had in mind back in October, in time for the reopening of school come April 19th. We also filled positions of curriculum officers in technical and vocational subject areas and mathematics, where there was a dearth. So here, Chairman, to start in our preliminary remarks, I am bringing to your attention an example of a goal we said we were going to attempt and a goal achieved through the use of ICT with the combined vigorous efforts of commissioners and senior officers of the Ministry of Education, school supervisors, curriculum officers, secondary school principals. We all sat, commissioners and senior officers, for months, confident that this hard work and team effort would redound to the benefit of the nation's children. And so I also want to draw to your attention that all of this was supported by very well-trained and professional officers of the division, of the department, who gave the kind of administrative support that speaks to an efficient public service. As we speak, Chairman, the labor-intensive, meticulous, and legally fraught process of the screening of hundreds of candidates for the positions of supervisor, principal, vice principal, deans, guidance officers, that is being undertaken by the officers of the Service Commission Department. And notwithstanding the scope of the task, commissioners are determined, and I really want to say this from the outset, that the appointment of deans and guidance counselors is critical. We know this. We know it needs to be done in order to meet the emotional and psychosocial needs of the children who, after 2 years of dislocation, have to be successfully transitioned back into their school communities, and we aim to accomplish this goal in 2022. So, Chairman, what I've just described to you are just the Commission's first two goals. However, the report that we gave you back in October identifies 6 other goals, which we are acting on and which are equally important to our remit. With regard to goals 3 and 4, which were impacted by the termination of physical tribunals.
Ms. Crouch, I thank you for that introduction. It is very, very welcoming to hear all that you did. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we want to go into the meat of those other goals within the discussion of our hearing. But I thank you, because so far what I'm hearing, it's very, very enlightening to us here to know that you have instituted those changes and goals. But we will go into the others whilst we are in the process of this inquiry. So I thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank you very much,
Mr.
Chairman. As long as we do get the opportunity
we will. Yes.
to establish what we said we would do,
yes,
and leave this morning having established what we have done.
Sure. So thank you. At this stage, Mr. Corey Harrison, the Director of Personal Administration, could you please give us brief opening remarks?
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here. As the Chair highlighted, with the issue of achieving and setting and achieving its goal, the Service Commissions Department played a pivotal role in achieving those goals. It's important that the role of the Service Commission basically is to provide that administrative support and technical advice to the Teaching Service Commission. And we ensure that the Commission carries out its constitutional mandate effectively and efficiently. We have embarked upon this by identifying 3 pillars: people, process, and technology. And we set about improving our processes, building our capacity through our people, and introducing technology throughout all our operations. I am therefore pleased to be part of this discussion this morning as we respond to your questions and have fruitful dialogue to the benefit of the education system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. And at this stage, would Ms. Sharon Ashman-John, the Deputy Permanent Secretary, give us some brief opening remarks?
Good morning again, Chairman. And the Ministry of Education welcomes this opportunity to be a part of this meeting to treat with the institutional strengthening and innovate of the Service Commissions Department. We at the Ministry of Education work together with the commissions and other stakeholders to develop and devise ways of providing optimal service to our nation's children. The events of COVID-19 during the last 2 years has enabled us to be resourceful and innovative as we have moved from the traditional face-to-face learning to an online system. And as we continue to strive for excellence, the ministry is committed to improving the service delivery to our principals, vice principals, administrators, students, and parents, along with all our stakeholders in education. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm happy I'm hearing the whole procedure, you know, the different parties mentioned in digitalization, technology. So we seem to be moving in right new direction. At this stage, would Mr. Darren Leham, third Vice President of Tutor, give some opening remarks, please?
Pleasant good morning to all present here today. Let me first apologize for the absence of our president, Ms. Antonia Tica de Freitas, who is unavoidably absent due to an illness that she has right now. So she would have been happy to be here this morning. The Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, we welcome this opportunity to contribute to the discussion on the institutional strengthening initiatives of the Service Commissions Department. We believe that this is important in ensuring the overall effective functioning of departments and or institutions that are directly or indirectly impacted by the work of the Service Commission. And we know that the work of the commissions and all ministries would have been affected with the COVID-19 pandemic over the last 2 years. We look forward to the reopening of school on the 19th of April, and we look forward to the initiatives that the Teaching Service Commission just explained that they would have accomplished over the period of time with the filling of vacancies, as we know that our schools are currently faced with a lot of shortage of teachers in various departments. So we look forward to hearing what the Commission has to say here this morning. And as the association, the recognized majority union that represents all the teachers in the fraternity, we will be monitoring and looking forward to those vacancies being filled in the near future. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. And I hope a speedy recovery to your president, who I know has been very vibrant to the rights of the teachers. Yeah. So at this stage, I would like to remind both committee members and officials to direct their questions through the chair, and also to remind members and officials to kindly activate the microphone on their devices when they are acknowledged by the chair, and turn it off when they have concluded their contribution. And at this stage, I think we all know that the importance that we have, the important role that education plays in society. I mean, it was a dream of our first Prime Minister, Eric Williams, to have that, you know, educating the school children. He mentioned, and he made mentions of trust, and we did fantastic. We did a fantastic job so far in our success in educating our public. And I am sitting here today as a product of teachers, dedicated teachers. And I must say, from my primary school, dedicated teachers like Ms. Joyce Clark and my St. Mary's College, Father Lifehook, Divertile, those were the persons who actually helped mold my character. Yes, I would have had a home with certain disciplines and certain rules and regulations, but coming into schools, that exposure would have helped. And certainly the well-being of the teachers to mold our next generation is very, very vital. Because you see, a teacher would often be the one to first see a child who is leading to be a delinquent child, a child who may be depressed because of abuse at home, a child who may have a learning disability. And sometimes the role of a teacher is really to be like a nurse, a psychologist, a policeman, to at least bring that discipline. So the role of a teacher is very important. I think a lot of persons may have not appreciated the role, but with the COVID pandemic and persons and parents having to teach their children, I think they have now again appreciated their role. When I see my first set of teachers, I still have that love, that respect for them. And I'm thinking that if this exercise today is to ensure that we have teachers who themselves are facing problems out there with the COVID and their own families, to somehow get them to function better, to fill their roles and vacancy better, to get their promotion better, we would be having better teachers who would be able to at least mold our nation forward, to mold that other generation. And I'm thinking the role of the teacher is really one, not just to teach and to educate, but to socialize and to actually create another generation there that would be a generation that civic-minded, that we would be proud of. And I know that you may have had during the COVID many challenges, and I'm hearing challenges occurred in the Service Commission, where it was mentioned that, even in spite of the COVID, they were still able to have all these applicants interviewed. And again, this is a matter of success working within the pandemic to at least achieve something. And at this stage now, I also realize that even though this was a success in the Teaching Service Commission, you may have had teachers who may have had problems in terms of adjusting to the new digital world. Some teachers, had that adjustment problem, and some teachers even complained, even though they were in classes, they had Zoom fatigue and burnout. So at this stage, I would like to start the question to members of the tutor first. Do you have instances that even with the pandemic, with teachers at home, with teachers having to be online, Zoom, to be adjusting their learning capacity, are the teachers being burnt out in any way? Did they complain to you as the teachers?
You ready first?
All right. Good morning again, Chairman and everyone else. Yes, we received several complaints of teachers being burnt out, teachers wanting to retire. Some teachers have retired and resigned because they felt that the emergency online engagement was too much for them, especially the older teachers who were, please forgive me, term, technological dinosaurs. It was difficult for many of them to learn the new technology and execute properly. What also happened is that some teachers felt pressured, whether it was an incorrect perception or indeed a fact. They felt pressured by parents, by the administration, by society in general, and they couldn't deal with it. Some other members couldn't handle working from home in a situation where your home became your office. And because life happens and persons would have had different challenges, for example, having children of school age at home as a teacher, trying to find a space for everyone to function. And we don't all have the same size of homes. So it became very difficult and stressful. So we've had many complaints, and we've tried as an association to support our members as much as possible. But we can say that it has indeed been a difficult time for many of our members. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And at this stage, I would like to now go to the members of the Teaching Service Commission. So we were hearing that some teachers may be burnt out, and sometimes that may have also been even before the pandemic, where you had persons schools may be complaining that they didn't have enough staff, or when staff went on leave, they would have had problems to fill that vacancy. Sometimes teachers may find it unfair. They had to wait all these years to get a promotion, to get hearing. And I heard some good news from Ms. Crouch actually mentioning some of the applicants interviewed and actually able to get staff on board. And could you elaborate, Ms. Crouch, about the members that would now be, how many persons that would be in terms of like principals and vice principals and, that were interviewed that would have been successful in their interview to be hired? Yeah. Yes, Ms. Crouch, I think you are muted. Yeah.
The commission, as I said when I made my introductory remarks, would be building on the foundation of the virtual interview platform to conduct interviews for principals, vice principals, guidance officers, school supervisors, and deans in 2022. This process is now currently under the hand of officers who are meticulously screening all of these positions. You will realize, sir, that what I did say was that during the pandemic with our rostered staff, we treated with heads of department because we understood that once the pandemic was over, it is the head of department who is in charge of making sure teams of teachers can deliver curriculum. And what we are dealing here with is learning loss. So that was our first imperative. In the course of 2022, my executive director will explain to you that we have in hand, using the virtual interview platform, the process to bring about positioning those senior officers. I would like Mrs. Mohammed Basdi now to further answer what you just asked me, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the areas that we are screening and shortlisting, we are envisaged that we will be dealing with deans, vice principals, school supervisor, and curriculum officers. So that area, those are the the areas that we are looking at for the rest of 2022. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. So, what I would like to inquire about, since the last set of appointments of the heads of departments, I think they were in 2013, and despite there being many vacancies, those posts were only advertised in 2019, and the interviews only concluded in 2022. Yeah, according to, I think, Tutor had mentioned that. So that scenario, is it changed in the sense that you have had, as I said, I'm gathering you had more interviews, and you have also had more definite, means of appointing those outstanding posts?
Chairman, the head of department normally operates around a cluster of subjects. So the fact that the interviews began in 2020, we had to receive, I think it was almost 800 plus applications. All of these had to be screened, and eventually 557 persons were interviewed over the course of 2021. I described to you this took months. And in fact, commissioners spent many months and hours and days being part of the process. There were no paid panels. We did it because it needed to be done. So what we are putting out in April, Chairman, would be heads of departments for the various subject clusters, math, computer science, or biology, science, or business studies, or modern studies, or languages. These clusters are now in place. And right now, in the department, positions are being filled for the 135 secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago. So this is mission accomplished.
So basically, you had to draw the line also for new applicants coming in, because I think with that backlog you had, I think it was mentioned in one of the submissions that the Teaching Service Commission decided that as of 30th of September 2021, it will cease accepting unsolicited applications as it had become untenable since hundreds of applications were being received in subject areas where there was no dearth of applicants. So despite this policy, are you still getting unsolicited applicants coming to you?
No, we are not. Just as in all other areas in the public service, we are now in line with the rest of the public service that applications are received for advertised positions. So that terrible situation of not hundreds, Chairman, thousands of applications. When you have persons, for example, that you have hundreds of people on the Order of Merit list waiting to be placed. So it's a good decision that we made, and it certainly assists the department to be in line with the rest of the public service.
Could you just indicate to me what are the trends and what sort of areas are there over applicants applying? You know, is there a particular subject matter that there's a lot of applicants coming in to try to get jobs?
Certainly, Chairman. Biology. We are now treating with persons who were assessed in 2014. Physics and chemistry. Social studies, the business subjects, we are now treating with persons who were assessed in 2009. In every instance here, the Order of Merit list has persons who were interviewed waiting to be placed. So you call for efficiency in the department cannot be weighed down with not hundreds, thousands of applications for which there is no job.
Yeah. So thank you. So if you have all those teachers on that list, the merit list, why were there still some delay in appointing these teachers in secondary school? What were some of the reasons that caused the delay? Was it the interview process? You didn't have enough panels? Is it that the DPA didn't have funding to actually have funds to hire these teachers? What were some of the delays that were there before that caused this situation to be as is now?
Are you speaking about the positions of head of department, sir?
No, teachers in secondary schools. Because remember, we are getting some feedback that certain schools were having teachers and waiting for those vacancies to be filled, and in certain subject matters. So I'm saying now, is it that what was the feedback then? Could you give us an idea? What would have stymied the process before?
Mr. Baldwin, you want to take that question?
Yes, good morning, Chair and committee. It's difficult to perhaps give a one blanket statement to say that there are some, so there are some areas, some subject areas that you will not get much applications. And in those areas,
could you indicate which areas that you may not get?
Yes, thanks. So you have those tech work areas, certainly. You have EDP, you have auto and diesel. So those tech work areas mainly. Over the years, and if I speak out within the last 3 or 4 years, we have realized that those are some of the areas that you don't get or you would not have gotten many applications as business and social studies and so on. So what we would have done about 3 years ago with the ministry and with the THA, what would have been to identify those areas where there would have been shortages and to have as soon as those interviews come in. So, as soon as those assessments come in. So, Mr. Scott would have spoken about some areas that we are interviewing persons whose assessment would have been 2014 and 15 and so on. What normally happens is that some areas, as I just mentioned, if we get once the ministry would have sent the assessment, those persons would have been interviewed some weeks to some months after because there was no glut there. So, and I recall, I think in 2019, perhaps 2018, I recall the Ministry of Education advertising, sending out an advertisement for tech teachers who are interested in those tech work areas. So, and that continues to be a problem. So, and just to understand also, and I think the Ministry of Education can speak to this. The process is the applications come to the Ministry of Education, they assess the candidates, and those assessments come to the Service Commission Department, Teaching Service Commission, for us to hold interviews. Once those interviews are held, we send to the Ministry of Education now a list of candidates eligible for appointment. The placement of those candidates in schools is strictly under the purview of the Ministry of Education, the placement of those candidates. And the ministry also has authority to give those candidates the first 3 months temp appointment. So, if there are any areas that there are no candidates, those are some of the areas that the ministry will tell us. And as soon as those, as I said, those assess well, and I'm speaking about pre-September last year, of course. As soon as those assessments come to us, we will arrange for interviews. So there are some areas that there are many candidates on the list, and the list is valid for 3 years, and sometimes, and we can provide that information. After that 3 year, some of those candidates are not placed, and they are asked to be re-interviewed. So it is not widespread as is to say all subject areas there are no candidates. Those are few because some schools will have some areas that they really don't have persons.
I recall a few years ago, the CXC personnel came down here. There was a big meeting, I think it was in somewhere in Port of Spain, where they met with the Minister of Education, and they actually added on certain subjects, more like IT and certain other subjects, to the curriculum. And I mean, which was, in keeping with the jobs that may be seen in the future. And so somehow, we have to try and get an idea with the change in the CXC curriculum, added on subjects. Are we getting the teachers to fill these posts? And if not, are you somehow giving an indication out in the public that those positions would be needed to be filled probably in a year, 2 years, to somehow give the younger persons out there an idea what they should pursue in terms of education if they want to teach a particular subject? Do you have a way of putting that out there for the a teacher who wants to come on board but doesn't know what subject matter they should try to specialize in? I think Ministry of Education maybe want to try to.
Ministry of Education handle that.
Yes, Chairman, with respect to the change in curriculum and the upgrade of informing persons of subject areas that would necessitate them coming into the service, the curriculum division has been carrying out training and also we have the guidance officers within the school system educating children as to what avenues that they can pursue so that they would be able to come into the system.
Okay, so I would like to give way just now to some of my members of my committee to ask questions. But before that, as I have the Ministry of Education on board, I just want to propose a question to you again. In your submissions, you stated that the Ministry of Education is not fully satisfied with the rate at which vacancies at the school management level are being filled. I think that was in your report. And additionally, during the committee's first public hearing that is held on March 2nd, on this issue, the DP advised the committee that his department must consult with the relevant public body to confirm that funds are available before vacancies are filled. So I need to find out to what extent is the delay in filling vacancies at the school management level attributed to funding shortfalls within the Ministry of Education.
Within the Ministry of Education, why we are satisfied with the strides that has been made thus far with the teaching service in trying to fill the vacancies, we are not fully satisfied in the length of time it takes. Not so much funding. Once we put the funding with respect to our estimates, we have the funding for those particular positions within the estimates. So the issue is having the positions filled in a more timely manner.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So at least we know it's funding is not the issue. We know sometimes it may be the fact that we may not have the subject matter of the teacher being, available, the particular training to teach that particular subject. At this stage, but is there any, before I go on to one of my members, is there any loans that like UNICEF and these people grants give to do like teacher training or even hire staff?
At present, we have loans from I can't recall exactly where, but we have teacher training ongoing. With respect, we have teacher training ongoing, different aspects being undertaken by the teaching service, by the Ministry of Education, through loans and so.
And if there is as I say, a particular field that you don't have teachers in, do you advertise in the rest of the CARICOM region where people may now have the freedom to come here and work? Have you taken that initiative?
Not that I'm aware of, Chairman.
Thank you. So at this stage, would members of my committee, would anybody like to move some questions?
Chair, with your permission, I can jump in at this point if no other member wishes to.
Sure, Ms. Sagram Singh. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Chairman. Again, welcome to members of the committee. Chair, through you, I know you would have asked pointed questions relative to backlog reduction, delay. I would like to start by focusing on the disciplinary tribunals. And I have some questions along the line of how discipline matters are dealt with, at least for the benefit of the listening and viewing public. Now, I myself have some general knowledge as to how, the teaching service operate. Being a teacher myself for very many years, I served for about 8 years in two major secondary schools from 2003 to 2010. And so I want to believe respectfully I have some institutional knowledge as it relates to the teaching profession, if not the service as a whole, but the profession. With respect, and I'm also an attorney at law by practice, so this is why I want to focus, Chair, on the discipline tribunals. Now, if this question, Chair, is pointed to the Teaching Service Commission through you or any other member that may want to jump in and respond. Now, in the Teaching Service Commission's submissions, Chair, particularly at page 8, it was stated that disciplinary tribunals have indicated that the inability to have in-person makes it difficult for the disciplinary tribunal to observe persons' demeanor, body language, and also to hear their tone of voice directly. So as I said, this is in page 8 of the Teaching Service Commission's submissions, and I want to believe that this would have been a particular concern during the COVID period, because I know pre-COVID we would have had in-person, I want to believe that there would have been in-person tribunals, right? What I want to know, so we have noticed that as the government, of course, there have been a severe reduction in COVID restrictions as it relates to how many people can assemble, the public service being called out to work at full capacity. My question is, as it relates to the disciplinary tribunals, is whether or not the Teaching Service Commission, in light of all of the COVID restrictions, the reduction in COVID restrictions, have you considered returning to in-person tribunals, especially in light of the fact that one of the major concerns coming out of those virtual hearings was a life concern, which is not being able to ascertain a person's demeanor and so on when being questioned by the tribunal. Have there been any consideration at all relative to the return of those in-person tribunals?
Chair, through you, I would respond to that question. While we understand that we had to introduce the virtual tribunal due to the COVID restrictions, one, and also due to the fact that we wanted to maintain social distancing, I think the point that was raised is a critical point, and at some point in time, we would be returning to in-person tribunals. But at the moment, based on certain situations, we would maintain the virtual tribunals. Hopefully, by the end of the year, we would be returning to the in-person tribunals.
Okay, well, I'm glad that at least the Commission's mind is directed towards the return of that, because I speak now as an attorney at law. Of course, you understand when someone is subjected to questioning by a tribunal, how critical it is during cross-examination, at least for the benefit of the person who's appearing, and more so for the Commission, the tribunal that has to make that decision, to have that kind of access to the person. So at least I'm glad that the Commission is considering the return to that in-person tribunal. Now, as it relates to discipline as a whole, I want to, other than, before I jump into other disciplinary questions, other than the complaint or the point being made that at the virtual platform, there was a concern about not being able to, sense or being able to ascertain a person's demeanor. Were there any other major challenges during those tribunal sessions that you all would have encountered or that you're aware of? Save and except for the ones identified at page 8 in your written submissions.
One of the other concerns we also encounter is the fact that the discipline tribunal is determined as a low-tiered court. So as it relates to representation, because a lot of the persons are now being represented by attorneys.
Right.
So therefore, as it relates to time, we have the issue of time because a lot of the cases have to be put off due to the fact that our court, our tribunal is deemed a low-tier court as it relates to the magistrate court, the high court, or even the privy council as it may be. So those are the issues that we are encountering where, as it relates to time. What it is we have also introduced to alleviate those factors is the issue of case management, and that has been playing a pivotal role in supporting how it is we manage our disciplinary tribunals.
And that is excellent because the court itself, as you would appreciate, has gone the way of case management. We have case management, of course, at the civil level. Now we have at the criminal courts as well, being subject to case management. And, you know, respectfully through you, Chair, I think this is something that is at least the development of strong case management systems will be critical. And I will tell you why I make this point. I mean, I would have started off by mentioning that I was a teacher myself, and during my tenure as a teacher, I witnessed that there were two teachers in particular that were before the Teaching Service Commission for disciplinary matters. One in particular went home and was able to do a PhD while waiting to be disciplined. And because of the fact that, remember, you're off on full pay, right? And it's not fair to the public's purse. Now, granted, as an attorney, I know when an allegation is made, that's separate from someone being convicted. So, of course, I would and even section, even when we look at 127 of the Constitution, that speaks to, you know, delegating the right to discipline and all of that. I mean, we understand why the Teaching Service Commission, there will be processes in place as it relates to disciplining officers. But certainly case management, respectfully through you, Chair, I mean, in my experience, and I'm sure many other teachers or people were teaching, and especially members of the public who may be looking on, may share that similar concern that I would have shared even as a new teacher, as a teacher back then, and now even more so sitting in government, where, as I would have alluded to, I have personally witnessed being in the system and seeing one person in particular, as I said before, and I want to reiterate that point. You're home on full leave. Of course, an allegation is made against you. You're waiting to be disciplined, and you were able to take that same money and complete a PhD. And that, I mean, that could never be fair. So at least I'm very, very proud that, and I'm very happy that the Teaching Service Commission has recognized the role that effective case management can play. As the court, as you would have alluded to, it's a lower court because it starts at that tribunal stage and then can proceed to, other courts. But it's critical, and I must applaud the Commission for recognizing the role that these case management can play, because certainly we would not want teachers, especially those, as I said, I know an allegation is separate from a conviction, but it's simply not fair to the public purse that we have persons often, they're home for unlimited period of time. Anyway, Chair, can I continue?
1 minute, I just wanted to just find out one thing. So we are getting a sense that the case management system is somehow improving the whole disciplinary process, which sometimes takes years. And I would like to ask the Service Commission at this stage, how many matters do you have pending in terms of disciplinary matters that are out there pending?
So, John?
Yes, Chair, thanks for that information. Thanks for that question. So, currently, we have at the Teaching Service Commission 46 tribunal matters ongoing. Now, before I go further, and we would have made it in our submission. So we have 4 disciplinary tribunals, 4 separate disciplinary tribunals. But those tribunals also service the Public Service Commission. So the 4 tribunals service the Public Service Commission and the Teaching Service Commission. Currently, we have approximately 150 matters before both tribunals related to public and teaching, and public side will be civil, fire, prison. Yeah, so over 150 matters. So currently, as I said, we have 46 matters ongoing at the tribunals related to teaching service. But I can also tell the committee that between 2018, January 2018 and March 2022, there were 71 matters. Of those matters, 25 have been completed. And of those 25, the commission would have finalized 19 of them in terms of fines, exoneration, dismissals, reprimand.
So out of those, sir, how many of the 25 that came to completion were reinstated or either dismissed? Do you have that figure?
But we only have, for dismissal, we'll only have 2. So others would have been fined, and there was only 1 full exoneration. Yeah.
Are there any means where, you know, sometimes I'm hearing that sometimes you may have had a teacher who did some infractions, but instead of pursuing this matter, you know, a sort of secret deal is made where you say, well, better you just retire early to finish this matter. Do you know of those instances have occurred in the past, or are they still occurring?
Respectfully, Chair, not at the Teaching Service Commission. That's not, once it's referred to the Commission, Commission takes the matter seriously, and once there's merit in the case, sends the matter to the tribunals for determination. So, respectfully, I can't speak to that.
Could you just indicate one thing for our knowledge? We know that there are certain persons choose certain professions to somehow feed on their perversions, and we know sometimes doctors, sometimes gym instructions, etc. Teachers may choose a profession to have that if they want to feed on their pedophilic tendencies. Do you have instances, the amount of inappropriate, probably images or inappropriate contacts between teachers and students? Any sort of percentage? Is it increasing? Is it the same? Any figures you can give us?
Chair, well, we can provide that figure, but yes, unfortunately, it is a reality that we are faced with. It is a reality, but to tell you here the amount and whether it's increasing or decreasing, what I can tell you is, yes, we have far too many of that, and those matters are being treated with at the Commission.
Okay, thank you. I see a member Lachmidial wanted to ask a question.
Chair, actually, you asked the same question I wanted to ask about the number of disciplinary matters, but that's okay. As much as I have the floor, I just have one other question. Let me ask one question about the disciplinary matters. You know, we've had similar challenges in terms of carrying on proceedings in court and so on. And in certain exceptional circumstances where demeanor of a witness may be of particular importance to the inquiry before the court, they have been able to make special accommodations through the judiciary. Have you had that opportunity to do anything like that? That's my first question. And secondly, how much reliance is there on written submissions from persons? As you mentioned, a lot of people are now represented by attorneys. And in the course of regular litigation and even criminal law matters before the courts, because of the pandemic and the difficulties we have experienced with meeting in person, there's been a much heavier reliance placed now on attorneys and litigants making written submissions to the magistrates court as well as the high court, which is the norm, but we've done a lot more of that at the magistrates court level. Have you had any luck, or has it helped you at all, or have you done it at all in terms of tribunals with receiving written submissions from the persons who may be before the tribunal for whatever infraction?
Chair, through you. So before the matter reaches to the tribunals, the Commission will seek representations from the alleged offender. So those submissions would be made to the commission even before the matter reaches to the tribunal. But once the matter reaches to the tribunal has conduct of the matter. As far as I know, yes, part of case management and part of, they will encourage and they will seek those type of submissions at the tribunal. But the commission itself doesn't get involved in the actual tribunal hearing for obvious reasons. So the tribunal itself has conduct.
As far as you're aware, has the tribunal made any special accommodation to have a witness in a socially distanced room or something like that to be able to conduct the trial where the demeanor of the witness or something? Because I'm concerned that tribunal hearings are basically being deferred because of COVID. I mean, of course, now we expect things to sort of resume, but have they made any attempt to have hearings where this is specifically necessary and so that they could progress with their work?
Chair, through you. So before we introduce the virtual tribunals, we would have established guidelines, both Public Service Commission and teaching, and those guidelines would have been sent to all parties involved. And even when a hearing is about to be started, those guidelines are sent to the parties involved. And one part of that is, of course, if there's a circumstance that a witness cannot, for one reason or the next, present themselves or have a space, the Service Commission Department, notwithstanding the
protocols.
Yes, we would have had arrangements and room at the Service Commission Department for such persons. And I can say in the year and a half since we started, we have only had one occasion that someone would have asked to come into us to have his hearing.
Right.
Now, yeah, sir. No, excuse me, one minute. I would like to appreciate the guidelines you mentioned. If you could provide it to the committee in writing, thanks.
Sure.
Yeah. No, but from what you're saying, though, sorry, Chair, through you. From what you're saying, so this would be a facility available if someone really needed to use it, but the tribunal would not request that the person present themselves at this facility so that they could now have a more interactive session with them, because, they want to be able to see the person. And I don't know, whatever is the subject matter, it really depends whether you would need to have a more interactive session than the electronic platform allows. But you're saying that really it's very, so what you described sounds very similar to the witness rooms that are made available through the courts and the police stations or at the magistrates court level, where persons who wish to access a device or a connection or a facility can come to, but you're not commanded to come there then, or you're not required to come there by the person who needs to examine you.
Yes.
Am I getting it correct? Okay,
yes,
all right, thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so I want to inquire something about the Teaching Service Commission. This is directed to them. As I'm hearing the good news that you had more interview panels, assess people. And this was, it came about, I think that push you got probably during the COVID pandemic. Would that continue? Is there a problem in getting persons to sit on this panel? Because what I gather that if you have an interview panel, you need a member of the commission to sit with other persons involved. And are those other persons like retired school supervisors or retired principals who would come on board in these panels, and are they paid anything to be on these interviewed panels? So in some way, I'm trying to say, do we have a way of having interview panels that would be set up, remunerate those persons well, get those members on board that will continue to deal with any further glut that could occur in the system?
Well, certainly if there is the funding we would be able to improve the number of panels that we have. And we look forward to that in order to deal with the positions that we spoke to you about at the beginning of the session. Principals, vice principals, deans, guidance counselors. Certainly, there is a need to expand the number of panels to handle these positions for 2022. Yes, you are right. We do need to have increase in panels.
So do you have like a pool that you have available, and do you have a number that you could probably suggest so the Ministry of Education could somehow factor in their funding for these individuals? And those individuals that come on those panel, would it be like retired principals or the other members like this, the school supervisors who would be on board to come on board, the school supervisor 3 or whatnot, to be on those panels? So you see, I'm trying to gather how many panels may you need to be in existence, and sometimes the funding that has to be acquired from the Ministry of Education to continue these panels. So if you have an idea that if you don't have it now, and you may be able to submit it after, at least let the Ministry of Education, even in our report, we will say that we think there needs to be this pool, this money allocated, and an ongoing panel to at least deal with this, interviews that would be coming in.
Chair, first to begin, the allocation of that fund is supposed to come to the Service Commissions Department and not to the Ministry of Education. Any funding as it relates to interview panels is supposed to be directed to the Service Commissions Department.
So therefore, in our recommendations, if we get something from the Service Commission, at least it will be directed to you and your department to be able to see how you can get that funding to prevent this, from occurring again. So I'm trying to get something also. Is it, when you are now interviewing those individuals like the heads, the deans, etc. Ms. Crouch, you could continue, please. I'm sorry, I didn't notice your hand was up.
I'm sorry, my hand is not up.
Okay. You are not muted. Would you like to contribute something with this in terms of the panels? If you have a pool of people already, do you need to expand the pool? Do you need, anything you want to contribute to that, as you have the heirs of the other parties here today?
Mr. Waldron will speak to that now.
Yes, Chair. Thanks for that question. So the Teaching Service Commission, I think in and around 2008, got approval to engage a pool of 24 retired education professionals. And so it would be retired school supervisors, retired principals, and so on. And we have engaged a number of persons over that years. Now, you would appreciate that it wouldn't be the same 24, and we're talking about for the last 15 years or so. So we do have a pool of persons, and in 2018, we got some additional persons because those who were there 10 years prior, and of course, it's retired persons. So after 10 years, so we'd have gotten more persons who would have recently left the service. We pay them based on the approval that we have $100 an hour. The issue with that is that based on the amount of interviews we have to do, and as DPA mentioned, that allocation comes to the Service Commission, its department, and particularly its allocation to the Teaching Service Commission under the vote of fees, which is at 23. The problem with that, the reality is that the allocation for the Teaching Service Commission has been reduced significantly for those years. That vote of fees is also where we pay attorneys at law to represent the Teaching Service Commission. So, as Mrs. Crouch would have stated with the HOD, the fact that we had to interview 500 persons for HOD. We had no money, literally no money. So to engage those persons, that's why members of the, and the problem that we have encountered is sometimes, well, not sometimes, the fact is, after those persons complete their service with us, those interviews, it takes sometimes months to pay them because we have to request funding. So there is some issue with funding, but to answer your original question, yes, we have a pool of persons that we can use, and they assist us. They assist in having interviews for the last 15 years or so.
In terms of when you're looking to hire the heads of departments and the deans, I think you are really dependent on the principals to give some sort of an assessment of these individuals. Do you have any sort of, like give confidential reports, special reports? Do you have delays sometimes from the principals in giving a report to fill these positions?
Yes, I think that is a problem that we encountered that really and severely hampered the process when the special report has not been completed or it has been done in such a way that it is not acceptable. So there is room for both teachers and principals and supervisors understanding how important special reports are. I think that's a very good question, Chair, that you're asking. And I hope the members of the teaching community who may be hearing this would understand that their special report plays a large role in the interview instrument.
Sure. So therefore, we may have to nudge these principals to at least, and even the ministry may have a function there to say, we need these reports to expedite certain matters so the Teaching Service Commission could do their jobs more efficiently. And in terms of let us say you get a report and it's not in a good light to certain applicants, do you inform the teachers who may have a report to such that they have certain things that they need to improve on? Do you see it as your duty to inform a teacher, well, you didn't make the grade because of a certain need for improvement?
No, we do not.
And is there, in terms now, I want to ask the tutor representative now. So if there's a teacher who was denied, somehow in that merit list, he figure, I didn't make that merit list because of my principal probably giving me a bad report. Is there a way that tutor now could, get to see that report? Is it confidential? Is it a way that, not in terms of causing any sort of major conflict, but causing a way that if a teacher needs to improve, to say, why did I not make the grade this time? I want to make it next time. Is there any way that tutor could, has been involved in any sort of instances like this?
Thank you, Chairman. Tutor has been involved in instances like that because, especially when he recently concluded HOD interviews, there were many persons who were not pleased with their special reports. As a matter of fact, some of them would even have produced confidential reports, their annual confidential reports, which would not have been in line with what was written in special reports. However, there is no real process for dealing with such matters. While we may deal with it as a grievance, by the time it comes to its natural end, it may be too late for the teacher. We have been asking not only for reasons why persons will fail interviews, but for just what you said, ways that these officers can improve for next time. But this is not something that happens, but the association believes that it should happen because the aim is to get a better officer. So if shortcomings have been identified through the interview process that were not picked up during the other processes that take place in schools, like the regular clinical supervision and class checks and so on, and even through the confidential report, then there must be a system to help the officer to correct whatever shortcomings or shortfalls may have been identified. And we look forward to hearing a proposal for such to be done. We are willing to have discussions, to have that done. Because remember, whatever we do is in the interest of a better education system. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you. And as I have you there, I would like to say that in the tutor's submission, you stated that tutor is against the further delegation of powers and responsibilities to the Ministry of Education and the school management team. And given the fact that the Ministry of Education is of the view that increased delegated power is necessary to ensure greater efficiency, can you expand further on tutor's opposition to the further delegation of powers to the ministry? So we want to clarify that. Do you think that somehow that will jeopardize person, so I need some we need some clarification on that further delegation that Ministry of Education may be entitled to get.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. We have had several issues with the ministry fulfilling the things that are within their power to do. One of the biggest issues we have is with extended sick leave, the classification of leave. Even in assessing persons by the curriculum division, not only do we have a problem with the timeliness of the classification, but we also have a problem with the seemingly haphazard way that persons are assessed. So it causes us to not have as much confidence as one would think in the ministry's ability to take on further responsibilities, because we have matters pending for years, some as far back as 10 years, that have not been rectified. And it is our view as the association that it is well within the power of the ministry to rectify some of these issues. However, the issues remain unrectified. We also have the issue where there is one clerk assigned per education district to deal with confidential reports and increments and so on. And if that particular clerk, who is sometimes a contract worker, is absent for some reason, nobody takes up the slack. And then an entire education district is left to languish for a certain period of time. And it of course was exacerbated during the restrictions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is basically a case of, we would like to see improvement in what you have control over now before we would want to say, yes, give you more responsibility. Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Member Amin, I think you, thank you, sir. Member Amin, I think you wanted to ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My internet has been coming and going all morning, so I don't know if I missed it. But linked to the issue just raised by the tutor rep with regard to confirmation and assessments, there's a situation with ATPs, where you have assistant teacher primary who have been functioning since 2013 on salaries within the range of between $6,000 and $7,000, and who have been, supposed to be upgraded. This upgrade has not been taken place, and by now those teachers should be teacher threes. Some of them have been reassigned to even secondary school, and with a salary of $6,500, you can imagine that when they are required to pay their rent and just put internet, they could barely afford food, literally. And I know of teachers who are in this situation. They are ATPs, and for years, they could barely afford to live on their salary. and some of them have been forced to take on second jobs outside of teaching, and it of course is affecting them. But some of them have been assigned to secondary schools. They have their degrees, they have their requirements from UTT, they are well qualified. And the issue of upgrading, in addition to the salary issue, which is separate, but the issue of upgrading them from ATPs to teachers grade 1, 2, and 3 is still outstanding. I know that Tutor has been speaking about it a bit, but perhaps at this juncture we could get some information from the Teaching Service Commission with regards to these ATPs.
Sure. Okay. To the Teacher Service Commission.
Thank you, Chair. I would now invite Mrs. Mohammed Bazday to respond.
Thank you, Chair. So once we have a recommendation from the Ministry of Education, we at the Teaching Service Commission will submit it to our commission for approval. We are aware that there are some ATPs who have not yet received their upgrade because from time to time they would call our department. And we are trying to treat with those by way of communicating with the ministry, requesting the recommendation. So in terms of that, we are trying to collaborate with the Ministry of Education so that we can receive the recommendation from the ministry and submit it to the commission for its approval. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair, through you, even where in some cases the upgrade has been done, the upgrade is on paper, and those ATPs are still functional on the 2013 ATP salary, even though on paper they have been upgraded. Now, I don't think it's enough to tell them, well, whenever the ministry gets money, they will begin to pay them the new salary. What is the status with regards to paying the new salary to these upgraded persons?
I think the ministry would have to answer that question. So,
through you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. With respect to the upgrading of the teachers, once we get the approvals from the commission, it is forwarded to our Director of Finance and Accounts. And when they receive the funding, the necessary releases, they will be able to quantify the arrears and make those payments. But as with all other ministries and departments, we have issues with releases.
So I just want to get it correct. Is it that these ATP have been upgraded, but you are just waiting on releases?
I didn't hear the first part of the question, sorry.
Is it that the assessment and the request for funding has already been submitted to the Ministry of Finance, and that the Ministry of Education is awaiting the releases?
More often than not, once we get the approvals, the ministry would request the necessary funding to effect either the current salary increases and the arrears. So we request those funds.
All right. So is it possible for the ministry to submit to the committee for us to include in the report the number of ATPs to whom who have been assessed and upgraded that they are waiting funding to pay, and the number, we still have a number to be assessed? Is it possible to submit that to the committee? Because I find you have hundreds of ATPs affected in this manner, and it is really unacceptable for a teacher to be working on a salary of $6,500, going the distance with their students, especially with the COVID challenges. These teachers literally cannot buy food for their families. So to me, this is a really serious situation that has to be addressed urgently. and any recommendations from the information from the ministry will aid the committee in making recommendations.
The ministry will provide such information.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I would like to find, is there some sort of administrative delay in getting this, some sort of a, because I'm asking the Teaching Service Commission, what appears to be this delay? Could you just give us some clarity on the issue?
Thank you, Chair. In some instances, we have issues with the vacancy. So sometimes we need clarification in terms of, the vacancy that the teacher has been recommended in the upgrade. Sometimes of course, it's staffing issues we have here. It's just a number of things, but basically it is the issue of, in a lot of instances, clarification on vacancies. We really have an issue with that.
So I heard a member, mentioning the fact that persons were waiting on their money that they worked for. But I remember some time ago when Mr. Garcia, I think, first came into that post of Minister of Education, I think it was some time ago, he actually pushed for the substitute teacher management system, the STMS, where if a teacher was absent, you would have gotten a retired teacher to offer their services to fill that temporary position in schools. Because we still have certain schools that if a teacher is on maternity leave or if there is some illness with a teacher, that we are still having that delay in getting some persons to come on board. Is that STMS system still in existence? Because I remember some persons even then complained that they would have come out as retired teachers sometimes to give up their service to be involved, which is excellent, but still they were not paid in a timely fashion. So could anyone elaborate if that system is still on board, or is it intended to be like a gap measure in cases where there may be a shortfall in a teacher being ill or not present for some reason?
Through you, Chair, the substitute teacher system is up and functioning within the Ministry of Education. The principals have access to the online system where they go and view the list of persons available and are able to reserve persons for short periods of time to fill certain vacancies. And that system has been operated.
Because I noticed some principals were saying they're still challenged, and sometimes they may have to try to hire someone and pay, let the Teachers Student Association, the PTAs, actually help the funding. So there may be a delay in that payment, which you may need to look at in terms of that. What I want to ask, I remember there was, I think 6 years ago, an audit that I was so proud of, where this audit was conducted, where they looked at the staff, in the schools, secondary assistant schools. And I was wondering what became of that audit, because that would have showed there were gaps in the system. That I think it had showed sometimes that there may have been what you call ghost staff, where a school may have started with 3 classes, because they had a whole set of students, but when that class dwindled, you still had teachers there, and there were not many students to fill. So there was that audit would have identified schools where there were excess of say like in PE in certain schools. And what I wanted to gather, if that is so, and if the education system has it in certain regions that these schools are, the supervisors in these schools, have you thought about implementing a system where you can have like a traveling teacher? For instance, I am in this school, but I do not have the amount of students to teach in a full class that I can go in that district and rotate. I know the tutor members, but they may have that objections, but I am looking at the fact that you may have a teacher trained in a particular manner and may be able to go in that area. In medicine, we have it. A doctor could go in different health centers in an area once they are there to work. once they are given, like sometimes a traveling stipend. Is that something that is feasible? And is it, do you have that existence of some schools maybe having, as I say, a overabundance of certain teachers in a school that they are not really utilized fully?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the staff audit that has been conducted through the Ministry of Education, we are still in the process of finalizing that audit so that we would be able to see how best we can reallocate resources to help with the distribution of the teachers. We're still looking at that audit. Hopefully by the end of the month, we should have that report done and recommendations made.
Okay, so we at least got an idea that certain teachers, as certain members of staff, may still be waiting from some sort of a stipend or money allocated to them. I think the teachers are also working on a 2013 salary too, and I think tutor is probably renegotiating this. I would like to find out at this stage now, if you, in terms of I apologize for not inviting the APPSS, the Association of Principals of Public Secondary Schools, and the Association of Principals of Assisted Secondary Schools for not being present also, because I think they may have contributed to this discussion further. But in terms of that, we may also, I think, write to them after to see if there's any suggestions they can have to that, or comments, after our report is laid, that they can help to improve. But I'm looking at the fact that, let's look at the assisted schools now. I understand that if you are getting, you're advertising for a post, and you put out there that you need a post for a particular school, be it principal, vice principal, whatever, and you now get applicants in, you have the merit list prepared. When this goes to a school, a denominational school, do they have that veto power that they can say, well, they are not in tandem with the institution of the school? And I'm looking more in terms of the Concordat agreement. Does that come about in a sense that persons are applying, knowing that they may not get into a particular school because they do not have that religious persuasion to get into that school, and in that way be turned away? And if so, how do you actually manage those individuals? Is it that only certain persons of a certain religion will go to these schools? You'll see those applicants, or do you now have to send it to the schools, and the schools may refuse to say, well, this person does not belong. The boards of the school may interview and say, this person does not belong to our religion, so they will now send it back to the commission and further delay the process, where you now have to get a new list and send back. Is that a delay that occurs? And Ms. Koch, I know you were in private, and I know you would have had that experience. So now, you're in that role now, you would have to see what is the best way that we can fast track these applications to those denominational schools.
Chairman, I was in public and private. I was in a public school, a government assisted school, and a private school. But to answer your question, I think it is not hard and fast. Many boards do hire persons who are not of the faith. But I do believe that when it comes to senior administrative positions like principal and vice principal, this is where you find that the leader of the school, boards would require that those persons be of the faith. But in terms of subject teachers, and I dare say even heads of departments and deans, you will find in many board schools that persons who are not of the faith are recommended by the board. That is my experience. I know Commissioner Mohammed is here. I would like to ask Commissioner Mohammed to make a comment, and possibly also Commissioner Claire Bradford Alexander. Could you respond, please?
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. So, Chairman, certainly our Chair is right. From my experience, we've seen at the middle management level, there has not been hesitation among certain boards to have recommendations made. At the level of senior management, the principals in particular, I think to ensure that the ethos of the school is maintained, that is the justification or the basis upon which the boards would tend to have someone of their faith. But we are in fact very happy that we've not seen a reluctance or hesitation on the part of boards to recommend persons at the level of teacher, heads of department, and deans. So our Chair is correct there.
Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. Commissioner Bradford Alexander.
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Couch. I also want to add, I concur with what was said earlier, and I want to add, yes, I want to add that in our discussions, in our meetings, stakeholder engagements with boards, we highlight the importance of a speedy response so that there is no delay in appointing the critical positions. But generally, boards are open, except in the case of leadership, as said earlier, where the ethos of the religion and the school are critical in the leadership function. Thank you.
So what I'm gathering is the list that the Teaching Service Commission would send to, say, a Catholic school, would it only be those potential applicants for like a principal of that faith? Or do they just send persons of different faith and then let the board decide, the board of that school decide? How does it go? Is it that you would now, in your interview process, say, well, okay, a Catholic school needs a principal, but with your degree, your qualifications, your experience, you also have to give your religion before we send that to the school? Or do you send a list to the school? The board now has to decide now, and see persons who are not of that religious persuasion to now send back it to you and then cause a delay. See, I'm trying to figure if there's a delay there going back and forth, and if somehow we could optimize that that little situation that we need to clarify.
Boards do interview all applicants. The list is sent to them and they do interview persons. They may very well have persons they have groomed and who are absolutely suitable for the job. The assumption is here that the board doesn't have someone who is suitable, but most board schools pay attention to succession planning and do in fact have persons who fit both public sector requirements as well as their own requirements. So I think this is part of the strength of the denominational system, that succession planning is part of developing the whole school community. So you're not relying on, is somebody going to be out there who will be able to come into my school? You do have situations, though, where the board may not have someone who's suitable from the field, and then they ask for the position to be re-advertised. So in that, you're very correct that the board will wait for a re-advertisement to happen and another round of applications to be conducted.
Thank you. I think Member Lochvidial, I think you have a question.
Yes, Chair. Yes, thank you, Chair. It's for you. I was just, it jumped out at me what the chairman of the commission indicated about succession planning at the denominational schools. I consider, I feel very lucky to have had that experience of a denominational school, a very well-run school, but I also experienced in government schools. I have a lot of friends who are teachers in government schools, and I was wondering does the Service Commission have any role or any sort of vision for that type of succession planning within the non-denominational schools? Because what I've found and what I've been told and what I've observed is that when a teacher becomes familiar with the culture of a school, with its students, a school is supposed to be almost like your second family. And I think to a large extent, the denominational schools, from my experience, that's how a lot of them operate. And I'm wondering if the Service Commission has a vision that government schools, the non-denominational schools, could operate in the same way, and that if succession planning for the promotion and elevation of teachers from teacher to head of department to management, senior management, and so on, if that's part of something that the Service Commission has considered to sort of structure into the non-denominational schools as well. Just because you mentioned how well it works for the denominational schools.
I have always, been very sorry that the local school boards never developed into a structure on par with the boards of the denominational schools. Local school boards are confined to certain kinds of routine tasks of infrastructure and so on. So I would think there could be some amendment to the legislation whereby local school boards could begin to function in the way you find school boards in the United States and Canada and England. We could see an infusion of talent, an infusion of purpose and vision for state schools. That is something I envision. But I've been around for so long. I remember doing a study on the local school boards when it was first started, and there was so much excitement around having a community take charge of the well-being of the school. But that is not the reality, member. And if you ask if I have a vision, that is the vision I would have. That something be done with the legislation to make local school boards function in the way that denominational boards do.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that suggestion, Chairman. I think it's something we would very much give further consideration to in our recommendations.
So what I'm guided of your vision, and I think it's a vision the country shares with you, where we would want the government schools to step up to the sort of indoctrination, the culture of some of the denominational schools who have a different sort of ethos. So your dream is our dream, it's the country's benefit together. But what I'm looking at, Chairman, is the fact that if we can get persons who have retired from the denominational schools to come on board or to come into the government schools, that may be something that could at least bring that level of you'll still have the fallout with the community there, maybe not in such a way that you may have a single parent who may not be able to afford lessons, etc. But if you get that staff who show that commitment in the private, with the denominational schools to go, across, you may get that. But you see, I've seen something, I've noticed that, I think as far as I remember, the Education Act, somebody at the age of 45 years, I think that's the maximum age you could apply to be a teacher. And I need some clarification on that. And it struck me that if I did succeed in my profession, and I now would want to give to teaching, to go into teaching, or I've retired, why is there that limit that you have to be 45 and less to apply to be a teacher? Is that so? Because if that is so, I look at it as ageism, as age discrimination. And I don't think it would have any place in society where we have an aging population, persons who may be able to teach, but because of their age, you may not be able to apply for a teaching post. So is that age limit of 45 still standing? Could anybody guide me on that?
Yes, but it is part of the Education Act. Of course, that is under the the employer, so it's not the Teaching Service Commission has no purview there.
But you see, we, in our report, we can recommend that some changes be made to the legislation if we think that that may benefit society, or even if it's, as I say, age discrimination in a sense. Because it's not like the police service where you have to be fit and young at a certain age. Once you have that mental capacity and you could teach, I don't think we should deny persons because of their age. This is my opinion, but it's something, you know, for discussion that we may, if there's no objection to carry that discussion forward.
In fact, Chair, if I may, in other fields, I mean, you mentioned medicine and law and so on, the more experience you have is the more, and the older you become and the more experience you are in the field is the more valuable you become as a lecturer, teacher at a university level and so on. So persons who may cross that age of 45 in a particular area and have experience may actually be better teachers and be more mature as well, and be able to give a better, be more grounded in their respective fields and have experience in life as well as in their profession to be able to impart knowledge to students. So, I mean, I think what the chair is getting at is this something that we should look at from a legislative standpoint and make a recommendation that it be reviewed?
Okay. At this stage now, I realize we left out our sister country, Tobago. So I would like now to say, in terms of the Teaching Service Commission, you stated that the Teaching Service Commission also view the THA as an important stakeholder, and in this regard, they did a two-day visit to Tobago in January 2022 and met with the Administrative Division of Education, Research and Technology. I want to ask, what were the main areas discussed during these meetings, and what were the outcomes or deliverables which arose from these meetings?
Commissioner Braffett Alexander.
Thank you, Mrs. Crouch. Thank you, Chair. As stated in the submission, the Teaching Service Commission and members of staff of the Service Commission's department went to Tobago on the 25th and 26th of January 2022. The critical issue was to improve communication and to have a sense of what are some of the particular issues, unique situations in Tobago that require the attention of the Commission. Coming out of that, the backlog was one of the issues, the backlog of appointments and appointments in leadership position and general appointments. And we looked at that. We looked at communication between the Service Commission, the Teaching Service Commission, and the Division of Education, Research and Technology, as it is now called. And we also looked at some of the concerns of boards in respect of appointments and transfers. We ourselves had some concerns about the communication and the information coming to us. And the outcomes of that interaction were fairly quite strong. Since then, one of the issues that the Division of Education had some concern about was regularizing the establishment of the schools, the 9 secondary schools in Tobago. And since then, that reconciliation has taken place within the 2-month period. Since then, communication has improved because with the use of the Teams platform, we see that there have been more than 6 meetings in that 2-month period, and we have cleared up substantially the backlog. I know that if necessary, Mrs. Mohammed Dasde, the executive director, might be able to give you some information in that respect. So what we are seeing is an improved level of collaboration, of communication, of feedback. We have rationalized some of the issues, and we're continuing to work on that kind of arrangement and communication. What it means is that we have given all the stakeholders a 6-month period to come back to them and do some evaluation of whether their issues have been addressed. And I can say already within 2 months, we've addressed the majority of those issues.
Thank you. So what I'm gathering is we have some improvements there. So this is something I think we are pleased to hear. And I think we have heard that the IT department, the future of teachers, I think is like having to be like a hybrid system where a teacher may be also be required to be not just in a practical class, but also to be aware that if perchance the pandemic has a turn and there's a more virulent strain comes about, we will have to revert to that old system of classes online. So I want to ask a question in terms of, is there consideration that a hybrid system could be there, whereby a teacher will be teaching practical classes, but we're not asking that teacher to prepare classes especially for online classes, because that in itself, to have that notes to put on an online thing, it's a onerous condition. Yeah, so I just wanted to find out, let's say, in terms of, I heard, the fact that, you know, if you are having practical classes, is it difficult to have like a online streaming of that same class, just in case, as I say, there's a turn and we need to revert, or in cases where it's not asking the teacher to do any extra work, but you just have that phone streaming that to individuals at home. Okay. Yeah.
Through you, Chairman, with respect to that possibility, discussions have been held with our Ministry of Education's executive, and I'm sure we would address the stakeholders to see the feasibility of that eventuality.
Ms. Lochmidial, I think you had a comment or question?
Chair, yeah, we have a question from a member of the public who wanted to know the current number of vacant offices within the teaching service. And I received a question as well from someone about what, if any, accommodations were made for teachers during the pandemic who were required to teach online, but who had children at home attending online classes. I don't know who can take that question, if the ministry will be best placed to take that question. It's a kind of a policy question. Anybody?
Chair, with respect to the vacant offices, we would submit to the committee the number of vacant offices within the teaching service. As it relates to the other questions, that's a ministry question because that deals with more policy, and that would have to come from the Ministry of Education.
With respect to that question, I would be able to forward that information after consultation with the CEO and the Director of School Supervision.
Yeah, I think you do even have like a ballpark figure of the total amount of vacancies to give the public out there a sense of what we are dealing with.
No, and that's why one of the concerns we had with vacancies, as one of the executive director previously spoke about, I think we need some sort of recalibration of the vacancies. Therefore, to give you a ballpark figure, it is a difficult one to do. So hopefully we will provide it in the future. To the committee, we will provide it to the committee in the future.
Because I was aware that there was an audit 6 years ago, but I don't know if that will be dated. But I see tutor representative wanted to make a comment. Could you?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner. So, based on our feedback, as far as we are aware, because we have raised the issue with the Ministry of Education with respect to the question raised by Ms. Lochmidial with respect to the arrangements for teachers who have students. As far as we are aware, there has been nothing put in place to accommodate such thus far. We are coming out of the pandemic, we are heading back into the physical realm, and but during that period, no such provisions were made for accommodation of those teachers. Thank you. Mr. Brooms, just add.
If I may hasten to add, Chairman, on the issue of the hybrid system being put in place, the association has been asking, we wrote to the CPO, we spoke to the minister about having negotiations about any hybrid or blended system, and the response has always been negative, that it is not necessary. I'm glad you raised it because we know how the world is going. We all experience the uncertainty of the pandemic, and those discussions and negotiations must be had. And if I may even step back a little bit, if you'd allow me, I talk about teacher education in terms of raising the age of entry into the teaching service. We have UTT, USC, and some other institutions offering teacher education, UE, in terms of the postgraduate diploma in education. But the DPED, or the postgrad diploma in education, is only available in service, which doesn't seem to suit what we are trying to achieve here. It really should be available pre-service, so that anybody should be able to go and do the DPED, but that's not the case right now. Additionally, we have graduates from UTT and USC with programs that were previously approved. Those graduates are now being told that the programs didn't suit the need. So now they have to go and do bridging programs and extra courses. So unless we fix teacher education in this country, we'll have problems with persons, especially coming in at later ages, if we don't have a proper standardized system of teacher education. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Yes,
sorry, can I ask a question? Can tutors submit some more information about that issue of pre-approved programs and persons not being able to enter into the service? Because I had a similar case of like that coming to my attention with respect to persons who are being trained at the Ministry of Agriculture, and there was a particular outcome. So I'd be very interested in finding out more about that, because I'm very concerned when people embark. Education is not easy. And when you embark upon a course of education only to be told that it doesn't suit the needs thereafter or doesn't meet criteria, when you were previously told that this is something suitable, I'm very concerned about that. So I would like to, if tutor could submit some more information. Just by way of comment, I'm very disheartened to hear, as a parent myself who had to work through the pandemic, that there was no accommodation made for parents. But that's just a comment on my part. But we look forward to any further comment from the Ministry of Education on that matter.
So thank you, and the members of tutor, I just want to ask a question here from the report that you stated that many principals do not properly follow the progressive discipline procedure, PDP, yet teachers find themselves before disciplinary tribunal. Could you just elaborate more about this PDP procedure, and what are some of the examples of the procedural irregularities that have occurred in relation to disciplinary matters involving teachers at the school level? And yeah, so after that I will follow up with one question after.
Thank you, Chairman. The progressive disciplinary procedure is something that should be followed throughout the public service. What happens is that, and I need to be very careful with my words, it appears that when allegations are made that there's a scramble to show that progressive discipline was done rather than simply producing records. For example, it starts with counseling, and in the counseling phase, there is a discussion and some exhortation and so on. And that is supposed to be recorded in the logbook. And what should be a part of that log entry is any reasons that may be advanced by the teacher or the education professional, for me to change language, not being regular in his or her time of arrival to school. In many instances, that's not done. We have had instances where warning letters were placed on members' files, and the members are claiming that they've never seen the warning letter. And there are procedures if someone refuses to sign a warning letter. Then the principal is required to get a senior teacher, maybe next in command, to, to sign stating that the officer refused to sign. But those things are not being followed. There is no, the aim seems to be more to get the officer in trouble rather than to rehabilitate the officer. And when we go before a tribunal, the tribunal, because of how the regulations are written, the tribunal isn't concerned with progressive discipline. They are concerned that the officer has been charged and they are now before them and they must make a determination. So if the progressive discipline procedure is followed, because the aim of the procedure was to rehabilitate the officer before the regulation 90 stage. But sadly, our experience is it's not being followed as well as it should be. And when persons when an investigating officer is appointed, in many instances, we see that, careful with words here, we see that there's a scramble to produce some kind of proof that progressive discipline was done, when in fact it wasn't properly done.
So there may be a so there may be a need to educate the principals and but has tutor communicated its concerns regarding the procedures to the Ministry of Education or to the Teaching Service Commission?
We have communicated that to the Ministry of Education at meetings that we would have monthly meetings. We did communicate such to the commission when we had our one meeting with them, and we were promised further meetings, and those have not yet materialized, but we live in hope. But we have communicated those concerns to them, and I guess we are waiting a response.
The ministry, could the Deputy PS, give us an idea what sort of solutions you have suggested based on the tutors' concerns?
Again, Chair, with respect to the recommendations of tutor, within our monthly meetings, we have discussions, and we, through the CEO's office and the Director of School Supervision, they have also tried to educate the principals and the administration of the different schools as to and offer assistance with respect to the progressive disciplinary process, so that we would have, once we have clear indication of the issues and documented evidence, we will be able to see those issues addressed more accurately. So I know it's with the Director of School Supervision and the CEO.
Has any circular written correspondence been sent out there? To the schools supervisors or to the principals?
I will have to check that, and I'll provide that response.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other members who would like to comment at this stage?
No, Chair, just to add to what you were asking about, I listened to the representatives of tutor, of course, the comment about, when disciplinary matters come, we have, the scrambling for evidence, for want of a better word, especially to prove a particular allegation against its member. Senate Member Lakshmi Diyal and I are both members of the Law Association, and I know with the Law Association in particular, we have a lot of training that goes on for its membership in various areas of the law, in ethical issues that may come up on an ongoing basis. No doubt the membership of tutor is not just teachers, right? It would be, for want of a better word, again, the higher ranking officers, whether it's a head of department, whether it's a principal or a vice principal. What kind of training has the association embarked upon, if any? Because I know I did hear you mention about the education chair, but what kind of training at all has the union embarked upon in training its membership in this progressive discipline procedure? Because sometimes all people need to be reminded. I mean, it may sound simple, but sometimes people may just need to be reminded and obtain that additional training I was a member of tutor when I was a teacher, and I paid my dues diligently as a member of tutor. But I am just I'm now sitting here in a different position. I want to know currently if there's any training that tutor actually engages as it relates to training its membership on progressive discipline procedures. Bearing in mind its membership transcends just teachers. It would, of course, be persons who sit in the administrative roles in schools as well.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair. We have a department led by Mr. Marlon, he's the fourth Vice President of tutor, which involves in training, right? So we conduct training for all our members who may be so interested. We do training with our staff representatives in the districts. We do training, we conduct workshops at the level of the union, where we have, for preparing for promotion, we prepare persons for promotions in the heads of department, deans, vice principals, principals. Those workshops tutor offer to all its members. We bring in trained personnel, we bring in persons who are experts in the field to conduct those training with our members, right? So we, from time to time, actually right now, the first Vice President had workshops last week, and he's also conducting workshops this week again for persons who are so desirous of being promoted in the education system. We offer to the Ministry of Education, we offer our services to them to assist in the training of those persons who wish to have, conduct workshops. We go to schools and we have professional development days. Once a principal sees the need, administrator has a professional development day that they would like to conduct in their school, and they send us the agenda. We provide the personnel free of charge, and we assist in conducting the workshops in the schools. So tutor does provide these services to all members out there.
With respect particularly to this progressive discipline procedure, have you all conducted any sessions on this particular area?
Yes, we have. We do conduct it with our staff reps, because our staff reps were the conduit for the association to the membership out there. We educate them so that they can ensure that the procedure is followed at the level of the school when they have to embark on matters related to the school level.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Bruce,
I get where you're coming from, because we have been offering the training, but unfortunately we are not the employer. So if we partner with the Ministry of Education and do the same training, I think it will have more reach than when the association does it, because we understand how some people see the association. We are not blind to that fact. And even though we offer the training, persons may get a different perspective from officers at the Ministry of Education, and they may be more inclined to lean towards the ministry's perspective because they believe that they are the representatives of the employer, for that purpose. So we have been asking to partner so that the training will be more widely accepted by education professionals.
And
Yes,
you would have to agree with me too, Chair, respectfully. There comes a time too when, especially when you look at the teaching service, I recall my days as a teacher, you literally sign your book, right? So there's this book, attendance book that you sign the time that you come in. And with things like that, I mean, we have to be able to also impress, especially the role and the platform that you all have to impress respectfully on your membership, the need for personal responsibility as well, because of course this could only redound to the benefit of the children in which we serve, which no doubt is the future of this country. And I must say, and for the record purposes, it's really refreshing to hear that Tutor has embarked upon a series of training sessions for its membership, recognizing, of course, that, as I would have indicated to earlier, this could only benefit our children, and certainly we as the committee can then consider the submissions that you would have made relative to that partnership in relation to progressive discipline procedure and any other challenges, and make the said recommendation in the final report. So thank you. Chair, thank you.
Yes, so I thank you for that. Definitely, Tutor, we have to congratulate you for that. And probably you may have to also, the association of principals, give them that so they would know. Remember, they are the main ones who may not, go full to that disciplinary procedure. So at this stage, one thing I would like to ask, I think during this pandemic, some teachers who had to have like a sick leave would have had to go. I understand that if you get a sick leave, you have to get it from a DMO, whatever reason. It's not like a normal. So is that something, when I looked at the pandemic where a teacher got a fracture, but had to actually put in a sick leave, but instead of getting it from an orthopedic surgeon, still had to go to a DMO in a public institution where they were frightened to get that COVID exposure. Is there a reason why sick leave that a teacher will present must go through a DMO? And especially in pandemic times, is there a case to revise this, that it can just be coming from your private doctor?
Thank you, Chairman. The issue stems from the regulations. You must get extended sick leave countersigned by a government medical officer. In times past, we used to have a district medical officer who used to deal with those things, but they are no longer any district medical officers for that purpose. The district medical officers are only for when there are crimes, when there are murders and so on, and the police will come on. And that's on a rotational basis. We have petitioned the chief personnel officer to have it revised, because I think the PSA has been successful in having the agreement revised, and with the associated change in the regulations, if necessary, for it to be a medical officer registered by the Medical Association of Trinidad and Tobago, because it is unfair, it is unkind for teachers who are already ill to have to be chasing a government medical officer from here to there. And COVID, of course, exacerbated the situation, because the doctors were pulled to do different duties. So it was near impossible for persons to get their ESL countersigned, and it caused problems with the classification of the leave and so on. So it is something that we hope that we will have negotiations and conclusion with the CPO on.
We may address it in our recommendations also, because it will, in fact, for the proper running and administration, to have an officer running back and forth to get these documents signed by a DMO, it may be, in a sense, taken from them in a sick individual. Yeah, sure. Yes.
If I may respectfully add my 2 pence on that issue, I respectfully believe the issue with the public. Remember, let's be realistic, right? We know we have the smart man and smart woman outside there, and we know that people usually have a family doctor. That's the culture in most countries. And sometimes what you find is that if you have leave being certified by a private doctor, we know the culture in Trinidad is you could pay $150 to some doctors and get a medical. And I think I respectfully submit, I believe that when these regulations were drafted, probably the mindset, and I stand to be corrected, but I could see realistically one of the reasons for wanting to encourage a private doctor is a public doctor is perhaps to reduce in some way at all the instances of people going to a family doctor, paying for a medical to get 3 months extended leave or however that works. So that's just my little 2 pence, my personal view on that point of public as opposed to a private doctor. But Chair, through you, is just one question I had, a very brief question relative to digitization, and it's a question really to the Teaching Service Commission. Now, I know the Commission would have mentioned, and of course, kudos to them, relative to moving to an online platform, their tribunals, hearings, and of course, migrating to the online platform, applications and interviews which were conducted. But I can't recall in their submission seeing a mention of an actual digitization plan, and a digitization plan more so that speaks to how this plan is going to then translate into reducing backlogs in interviews and any other challenge that is currently that the Commission currently faces. So my humble request through you, Chair, is if in writing for the committee's consideration, because I know time is also of the essence, if we can perhaps have that submitted to us, the Commission's digitization plan or policy, if there is indeed such in existence. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, so thank you for that question, and I hope we get that in writing. And at this stage, I would like to say we are now coming to an end of it. If I would certainly love the members present from the chairman of the Teaching Service Commission, Mrs. Elizabeth Couch, to give any brief closing comments.
Thank you, Chairman. In closing, I want to place on record that the Commission remains goal-oriented. I had planned to share some of these goals with you, but I guess time did not permit. However, we are letting you know that the 9th goal, which is the appointment of the Chief Education Officer, was accomplished through a very robust assessment center exercise, and Dr. Peter Smith was appointed Chief Education Officer on Monday. Additionally, we would like to let you know that we are in collaborative meetings with the Ministry of Education to work on this digitalization that the member asked about. Additionally, we do let you know that in terms of our outreach, the Commission is dedicated to reaching the average teacher through its quarterly newsletters, which can be read on a smartphone. And so that is the direction we will be taking. We thank you for your interest that you have shown and the probity of the questions that you asked the Commission. And we assure the community that we are working for the benefit of teachers and children post-pandemic. Thank you.
I thank you for what I've heard, and you're successive, and I wish you more success in the future, and you're doing a remarkable job. Thank you very much. And Mr. Corey Harrison, Director of Personal Administration, could you give some brief closing remarks?
Thank you, Chair. The issue here is the improvement in the education system. The collaborative effort between the Teaching Service Commission and the Service Commission's Department and all key stakeholders is critical to this success. So based on that, I reinforce what it is the chair has said, where it is we look at stakeholder engagement. I reinforce a lot of the things that we spoke about, where it is we're bringing value and accountability to the system. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. And at this stage, I'd like Ms. Sharon Ashman John, the Deputy Permanent Secretary, to give some brief closing comments.
Thank you, Chair. I too am in agreement with the Chairman of the Teaching Service Commission and the DPA, and the Ministry of Education is committed to doing what is necessary to improve our internal systems and to the collaborative consultation with the Teaching Service Commission to effectively carry out our mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Darren Leham, could you please give some closing remarks?
Thank you, Chair. We were grateful for the opportunity to be here this morning as we continue to work collaboratively with the Ministry of Education, and we have our monthly meetings with them. We meet on a regular basis as time permits. Also, we continue to have our meetings with the Chief Personnel Officer. Our aim here would also be to have those regular meetings with the Teaching Service Commission. We know that there's a challenge with the Teaching Service Commission not being a full-time body, and as such, they would meet when they get the opportunity to have their interviews and so on. But we, as the association, would like to have more frequent meetings with the Teaching Service Commission so we can address a lot of the issues that would have been raised here this morning, and also issues that we did not have an opportunity to raise. But we again thank you for the opportunity to be here, and we found it to be a very informative and fruitful session here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it seems that, you know, there seems to be an avenue where we could have had more discussion. So I apologize for the timing, you know, that we couldn't explore that. So we may, if we want, to have another meeting sometime in the future if we decide. But at this stage, our purpose here this morning was really to make sure that we have a teaching, a staff, a complement of that, and teachers who are adapted, who are happy in their jobs, who are serving us, you know, out there in the community to produce the next generation of children. Because a happy teacher will give of himself, will give to the children the best education, socialization, and civic mindedness to our next generation. And I like to end with a quote by, I saw the acting principal of Hillview, Derek Bissessa, had a quote in his WhatsApp message where he said, if you light a path for someone else, it always brightens your path. And this is something teachers, we are totally indebted to your service and will always be. So at this stage, I would now like to just make a brief announcement that the public is advised that the fifth report of the committee on an inquiry into the efficiency and effectiveness of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board was recently presented to the House and the Senate. This report can be reviewed or downloaded via Parliament's website, www.ttparliament.org. For those persons who are injured, they would see means that they could apply to, you know, how they could apply, what recommendations we made. At this stage, I would like to thank the officials of the Director of Personnel Administration, Teaching Service Commission, Ministry of Education and Tutor for your contribution to today's proceedings. I would like to thank committee members who participated remotely, also the staff of the Office of Parliament for your procedural and logistical support, and the viewing and listening audience and those who participated via messages. At this time, I would like to declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.